Yes, CARL. Yes. Hello, I can't see anybody.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you are seeing the preseason meeting 2025 slide up on your screen. My name is Tim Dutcher. I'm one of the supervisors over Pools and Environmental Health Services. Hope McIntosh is with us also. She's our co-supervisor over our team. And Katie Wilson will be leading the presentation today. First, I want to thank everybody for showing up and taking the time to handle this. It won't take too long and we'll get you back on your way. Throughout the program, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box and we'll do our best to get them answered as we go along or save them till the end. We will save a few minutes at the end so we can go over any questions and let you speak your mind and what you got going on. So hope everybody enjoys it and I appreciate y'all being here. I will hand it off to Katie now.
All right, welcome everybody on this rainy Tuesday afternoon. So we're gonna, like Tim said, we'll get through all this. Hopefully it'll take us about an hour, maybe some change with that. Lots of topics to discuss, to talk about today. So if you don't know me, my name is Katie Rudisil. Chris Sells is one of the other seniors. Tim Dutcher and Hope are both supervisors of our program. So our contact information is here if you guys need it, and it will also be on the very end of the presentation also. So feel free to interrupt if you have questions, just raise your hand, and then just make sure you're on mute also, because we're getting some feedback, it sounds like, from some of the microphones. And then just put some comments in the chat if you have comments. We'll answer questions at the end. So we will go ahead and get started. First, I just kind of want to run through everything that we're going to be talking about today. We got our website, our new website, what's new in 2025. There have been some changes. I'm going to have you guys, can we mute that? Thank y'all. What's new for 2025? Like I said, there have been some changes with the regulations, so we're gonna touch on what those changes are, and then infield plan review applications, our operating permit inspection process, same for submittals for the operating season, applications, and night swimming. So lots of topics with quite a few changes on the front side of this. So first thing, if y'all aren't familiar with our website, it has changed, I believe, last year, or maybe the year before. It used to be the MEC Pools website address. So if you have it bookmarked, make sure you're bookmarking our new our website address. And that's where you're going to go to find all the documents that you need to find in order to be able to get you started on this pool season. So what is on our website? So we have PDSC forms and permit applications. Those are on there, and that hasn't really changed. Just make sure you're using that search engine to find their most current forms. We also have a pool notes document that we started to put on our website last year. The next slide will go into what exactly that looks like. And then again, like I said, our rules changed on November 1st of 2024. There wasn't a whole lot of changes that affected our operators. We'll touch on what is going to affect you guys for this upcoming season. But those new rules are posted on our website. For those of you familiar with this program, those documents that we use for VGB, which is your Virginia Graham Baker Act, and drain cover and pump documents are going to be on our website also. And then we had the infield plan review application that has been updated with a couple things. Just make sure you're using that for equipment changes. And like I said, we'll go into that on future slides. So the pool notes document that I referenced is actually a very good document for you guys to utilize for this upcoming season. It's going to be listed in the same place that your application and your PDSC forms are listed. And what this does is it's going to have the information for your pool. It's going to put the expiration dates for your main drains and your equalizers. So if you're coming up upon expiration, it'll tell you on there what those expiration dates are. And then it also lists on the bottom, and you'll see it highlighted on this slide, is any permit restriction or note we have for your pool. So if you have a permit restriction that your pump needs to be set at 100 gallons per minute, it's going to be listed on there. Or if there was something holding you up from last season that we never got paperwork approved, or your drain covers are expiring or something along those lines, it's going to be a note in our system that's reflected on this pool note form. So as you're going through and printing off your applications to submit, be a good idea to click that link also, and then print this out, give it to your CPO so that he has it, and that he can make sure for his operating permit inspection that his pump is set at the right speed, or whatever else is on that listed as a permit restriction. Okay. So we're going to move into regulation changes because, like I said, there were some regulation changes for this upcoming season. So the new rules came into effect on November 1st of 2024. They were adopted by the state, and we started utilizing them immediately. So what changed for you as a pool operator is going to be suction vacuum release systems, which some of you may or may not know what that is. And we'll go into that, what that is in the next few slides. And then flow reduction requirements that allows for reductions to be able to meet approvals for equipment changes. And again, like I said, we'll go into those in some upcoming slides too. So what is an SVRS? SVRS is a suction vacuum release system. And what that does is that system is tied into the pump, and it permits the pump to basically cease operation when it detects change in flow of pressure. Okay, what it'll do is it'll just turn your pump completely off. It is required to be installed per the manufacturer's instructions, and it's also required to be tested but according to what the manufacturer says. And I want to say that an SVRS, some of you may or may not have this, it's only required for single main drains or for main drains that are less than 36 inches apart from each other. So if you have drains that are more than 36 inches, you're not required to have an SVRS. But if you do, you have to have it, you're required to be testing it per the manufacturer's requirements. And that's something that was new that was written into the rule book. Okay. So
let me barge in here real quick. We've got a few people that are saying they can't see your presentation. I don't know if it's happening to everybody or just a few people. I don't know if they need to reboot and reload, but is everybody else mostly good with seeing things?
I'm able to see it.
All right. If you're having issues with seeing it, you may need to disconnect and log back in. Other than that, everybody else can see it. So sorry you're having any issues. Thanks. Sorry, Katie.
Yep. And this presentation too, for if you are having issues, will be posted on our website, hopefully by the end of this week. But just make sure you can look back on there to look at the slides, and also the whole presentation. We're going to post it on our website in case you miss any part of this. So back to SVRSs, this slide here is basically just a pictures of what you may see as an SVRS if you're looking in your pump room. Okay, the one on the far left is literally just a system that attaches onto the back of the pump that monitors the pressure and flows throughout the pump. The center picture is going to be an SVRS built into the pump itself. So you may see an IntelliFlow pump plus SVRS as your listed pump. That's what that is. It's built into the pump itself to be constantly monitoring the flows that are going through that pump. You have some systems like the one on the far right, in the lower left, the Stratum VRS and the Stingle switch. These are automated systems that are going to be lit up on your wall, and they're constantly monitoring the flow. The most common we see is probably this one in the center on the bottom is called a VAC alert, and that's hooked into the main drain line, your suction line on your pump. And what that does, again, it monitors that pressure and it breaks the connection between the two, so there's no more suction on those main drains. And then the last is going to be a VACLA system that ties into the ports on the underside of your pump. If you have this, just make sure the pressure gauges are operable. And again, all of these need to be tested in accordance to what the manufacturer requires, and that needs to be recorded in your logbook. Okay, like I just said, so if you have questions about what the manufacturer requires, we have done some digging on this. So if you're having a hard time finding what that is, we can try to get you the most recent of what we could find for the testing requirements. Again, like I said, it needs to be in your logbook. If you're not maintaining those logs, and this is part of the new rule change, so you have to be recording the SVRS testing in your logbooks, okay? And then our inspectors are going to be verifying during the inspection whether or not it's a pre-permit inspection or an annual inspection that you're actually doing the records as required by the manufacturer. So if you're not, you have to be able to demonstrate that for us while we're there on site. And if you can't do that, then we're either going to be suspending the permit or denying your permit until you figure out how to test your SVRS and have it documented. All right. So now moving on to the next change. So if you all are aware, some of you are, the change in regulations a couple years ago when we went from single speed pumps to variable speed pumps, it now allows for us to be able to dial that pump in a lot more specific to what your system requires. But with that, you're also going to have flow reductions that we are permitted to allow for now. So a flow reduction may be required if the pump design exceeds the flow ratings for your drain covers or your filters or your pipe sizing, any of the equipment that you have in your pump room. And that flow reduction is basically a true reading of what your system is actually running at, okay? It should be taken after a backwash. And the reason why we want to take that after a backwash is that we want the flow to be a true reading, like I said before, where it's actually where the water is the cleanest going through your system, okay? All your valves should be open, your filters should be clean, and then you can actually get a true reading off that flow meter to see what you're actually pumping through your system. The new regulations require, well, the state is requiring that photographs be taken on either a properly installed flow meter or pressure gauges, and those need to be submitted with the PDSC forms for documentation. We have to keep it in the file with whatever you guys, the PDSC forms that you're submitting. So if you're using a flow meter, there's going to be a permit restriction for a flow reduction. Let me back that up. If you're doing a flow reduction and you're using a flow meter, that flow meter has to be operable at all times that our inspectors are out there doing the inspections. And then if you're using pressure gauges, which we'll go into these two different types of examples in some upcoming slides. But if you're using pressure gauges, those gauges need to remain in place with an operable flow meter also at all times. So our inspector can verify it during the inspection. And as you, as an operator, can go in to make sure that the pump is running at the speed it should be set at. So the last change with that is a flow meter. The flow meter that's installed has to be accurate to 5% when we're taking that initial reading. And so most of your flow meters, which this next slide will show you some examples here of flow meters, most of these flow meters are accurate to 5%. Okay, so the one on the top left is going to be a Flovis. This specific type of flow meter is actually pretty neat. It doesn't require certain piping size on either side. It can be installed horizontally. It can be installed vertically. There's not a whole lot of specifications for this type of flow meter. So if we get into a situation where you have a tight pump room and you need to use a flow meter, this may be an option to be able to get an actual true flow reading. The next two are just your typical bobber flow meters that we see in probably 90% of our pump rooms, which has a little bobber in the middle that goes up and down, and then you read it off of that. And then the lower two are just digital flow meters that do require a decent amount of pipe sizing on either side of them, but they are pretty accurate. Okay, so if you're doing a true flow with a flow meter, so for example, if you have to change your drain covers out this upcoming season and the new flow for the drain covers doesn't work with your pump, we can get a true flow with a properly installed flow meter. So what you're going to do is backwash the filter, then you take photographs of the flow meter, okay? And then that flow is going to be put onto the PDSC form. And then you'll provide pictures that you've taken of the flow meter and the inlet outlet pipes with the submitted PDSC form. So this picture here on the left-hand side, like I said, this blue-white flow meter is typically what you see in most of our pump rooms, especially our seasonal swimming pools. So how to tell the difference between a old style 10% accurate blue-white flow meter and a new style is up at the top where you see that circled in red. It's going to say Schedule 40, Schedule 80 for a 5% accurate flow meter. It's going to be in gallons per minute or liters per minute for a 10% accuracy. So if you need to use a true flow rating and you're having to decide whether or not you need to put in a different flow meter because of the accuracy, take a look at the top of that and it'll tell you whether or not you have a 5% or a 10% accurate flow meter. Okay. And then in this case, you know, after we've done a backwash, you read where the little red bobber stops and it's at 58 gallons per minute. So that would be what you submit on your PDSC form, and that would be what the pictures represent when you send them in. So just another example here, this picture on the left is our PDSC form. And I say that thinking that everybody knows what that is. So a PDSC form is a pool drain suction compliance form. You'll hear me refer to it as that kind of throughout the presentation. It's what is required to be submitted with your drain cover replacements. So the one on the left, like I said, is your PDSC form. The information that you see the arrows coming from are going to be the measurements that were taken. So in this case, it was 21 inches on the inlet side, and it was, I think, 7 inches on your outlet side. So they provided that with the flow meter to show us that it was installed how the manufacturer requires. Our inspectors are verifying all this out in the field with the flows. So we want to make sure that you guys are submitting the accurate information with the approved PDSC form. So then you'll just do a reading on this flow meter after, you know, you take the pictures of all this and you'll submit it on your form. And I can't read that from here. I think it's like 98 or something like that. So just make sure the picture matches what's on the paperwork. Okay, so we talked about flow meter, flow reductions. The other way to be able to do a flow reduction is based off of pressure gauges on your pump, okay? And those pressure gauges, if you look on the right lower picture, they're gonna tie into the ports on the underside of the pump. And like I said before, those pressure gauges need to remain in place at all times for our inspector to verify if you're using this as a way to prove a flow reduction, okay? So this next slide here gives an example of where those would go. So one's gonna be in mercury and the other's in pressure, PSI. So you're gonna backwash the filter just like we did with a flow meter. And then you're gonna take photographs of the pressure gauges that were installed on your pump. Those, and again, like I said, those pressure gauges need to stay in place after the photographs have been taken. So provide the photographs of the pressure gauges with your paperwork, and then you still have to have an operating flow meter installed per the manufacturer's instructions also. So these numbers that you get off these pressure readings are going to be used to fill the PDSC form out on this next page. Honestly, I think flow meters are probably the easiest option and way to go, but you do have a couple ways to be able to do flow reductions, but this is probably a little bit more tedious than just getting a flow meter. But we'll go through it anyway. So this is those pressure gauges that were in that picture on the previous page. So you had 15 in mercury and 23 PSI. So when you look at our PDSC form, there's a formula on there that looks like engineered work, and it is engineered work. But you plug those numbers into that formula, which it has multipliers, which gives you a head loss. And so that head loss is what you use to read your pump curve. So normally when you're looking at a pump curve, when we're looking at VGB approval, we take that pump curve and we would read it all the way down to the very, very end of the last curve on there. And that would give you the maximum capacity of what that pump can pump. And so with a true flow reduction, with these pressure readings, we're actually getting what the pump is actually reading, which is going to be less, or flowing at, which is going to be less than that maximum speed. So in this case, after you did the calculations, at 70 foot ahead, you would find 70 on the left side of the graph here. And then you would trace that over to where that farthest pump curve is, and then read it where it is on the bottom at gallons per minute. And in this case, it's going to be 112 gallons per minute. So that's a lot less than, 150 of what this pump can pump at. All right, that was a lot to throw at you guys. So like I said, these slides will be on our website if you need to go back for reference. So we're going to move on to VGB, which is the Virginia Graham-Baker Act. With federal law, thankfully, nothing happened over the last year with this, and it all stayed the same. But if you went through drain cover replacement last year, you will know that there were a lot of changes that were made in the regulations that we had to enforce last year. So basically, to summarize, drain covers are now being tested on a new standard. When I say APSP 2017 standard and APSP 2008, you'll hear me refer to drain covers as either 2017 or 2008. And it's based on the testing year of the standard that those drain covers were tested on. So it's 2025 now, but we're now testing drain covers based on a 2017 standard. So there's a difference in the 2017 standard and the 2008 standard for the flow ratings that each one of these drain covers have. What changed with that is going to be the testing requirements for how those drain covers were tested. In previous years, it was only tested on one configuration. So you would see a drain cover that had just one flow for the wall and one flow for the floor. And now the drain covers are being tested on very specific sump configurations. And so the flow ratings vary from upwards of possibly even 20 different flow ratings, depending upon the specific type of drain cover you're using. So if your pool is due for a drain cover replacement, I think this year we may have about 250 to 300, but it's an equalizer expiration year this year. So we have more equalizers probably expiring than drain covers. But if you're due for replacement, just make sure that whoever that you get to do the replacement has experience doing this type of replacement with the new standards. And that when they're taking the drain covers off, they're getting pictures of the box, which is the sump. And I'll explain that in a couple more slides. Prior to putting your drain covers on, because if those sump measurements change in any way from what was originally approved, we are required to have documentation of those sump measurements. So what we don't want is for y'all to either drain your pool or have somebody dive it, they replace the drain covers and not get you the documentation that you need, and then we have to do it again. So just make sure that they're getting you all the correct documentation that you need on the front side. So what does this mean for your pool? Again, so the drain cover that was installed on your pool in previous years, so it may not work moving forward. So if you had the same cover replaced and it had a 5-year expiration, and for the last 15 years you used this specific drain cover and it's worked, it may not work anymore. So you need to make sure, again, that whoever is doing this replacement is looking at those new 2017 flow ratings on those to make sure that it still works with your pump and the sump. The drain covers, like I said, just have very specific sump specifications and very, very different flow ratings. A drain cover that could have been approved previously at 170 gallons per minute may now only work at 63. So it's quite a substantial decrease in some of these cases. So if you have questions on drain covers, feel free to reach out to myself or Chris. We can try to walk you through any options you may have from the information that we have on files. Sometimes we're going to need to know those sump measurements though before we can approve or disapprove any installations. Well, all the time we're going to need to know those sump dimensions. So if it's in question as to whether or not you are due for replacement, we have a list on our website that has the PDSC form expired covers list. I also reached out, I sent an email probably about a month or a month and a half ago to anybody that we had on file that has expiring drain covers. So you check out that list. Hopefully it's all inclusive. You want to make sure, again, look at those PDSC forms that we have on file to make sure that the information that we have on file is actually correct too. We make errors also. So again, it's going to be listed under drain covers in VGB. And if you also want to get a copy of that, we can feel free to reach out to, myself, Chris, Tim, or Hope, and we can get you a copy of it also. So for new PDSC form submittals, all your new forms, when your drain covers have been replaced, need to be submitted on the most current form. Submit it with the manufacturer's pump curves and specifications. And then also, we need to know whether that it's a 2008 or 2017 drain cover. And that's a check mark that you're going to be marking on the paperwork that you submit. So if it's a 2008, please try to provide documentation with that proves it's a 2008 drain cover. And the reason why I say that is the regulations changed in 2021. We were still seeing some of these old covers up to about 2 years ago, year and a half ago. And there's not really much on the market anymore. So if you're able to find them on a shelf somewhere, that is great, because there's only 2 flow ratings for that. But we do ask that you keep the spec sheet for it and submit with the paperwork that shows it's a 2008. Just an example here of our most current form. All sections of this form need to be filled out when you're submitting that. I believe, in upcoming slides, I'll show you where to find your most current forms to help you fill out the new form when you get your drain covers replaced. So I just want to switch gears just a little bit and just explain to you guys what a sump is and those measurements that we were talking about in the previous slides. So a sump is going to be basically that square box or circular box, not circular box, or circular opening underneath your drain cover that your drain cover fits upon. Okay. It can be either a field built one or it can be a manufactured sump. One that comes from already prefabricated and put in just into your pool floor. But this is what I'm talking about when I say a sump and what we need measurements for on the submitted paperwork. So again, just to reiterate, if the sump measurements vary from a previous document submittal, and we've seen this even with original construction with engineers, where it's different than what we had originally, just make sure you're getting pictures of and documenting those measurements for us, because what we use that measurement for is going to determine whether or not a drain cover will work or not. And in some cases, a difference of 1 inch makes a difference in whether or not it can be approved. So how to obtain those sump measurements? There's 3 things that we're going to need on the submitted paperwork. And you'll see this is the section on this form under main drain sump measurements is where we're going to put that information. So we need the diameter of the suction outlet pipe and where it's coming into the sump. So that's going to be either on the side or the bottom. And in this case, the pipe is going to be coming through the sidewall. And then we need to measure from the distance from the top of the suction pipe to the edge of the sump. So where that water is being pulled out of that sump, the top of that pipe to the edge of the sump. And then in some cases, we will need the full sump depth depending upon the drain cover that you're installing. And we ask that you do it with a tape measure in a level, just so that we can see the specific dimensions of that sump. So PDSC forms and inspections. So again, this hasn't changed from previous years. All your paperwork needs to be submitted and approved before we're going to be scheduling an inspection. So if you have an approved PDSC form from last year, you don't need to resubmit a new form. It's only if you have changes to what was there previously. Those forms are going to be submitted to pdsc@mecnc.gov. That's going to be the general email address that Chris and I both have access to. So just for speed along the process a little bit, whoever gets to it first, instead of sending it to just Chris or just to me, and you'll have to wait on us to be able to get to it in the line of the emails that we get coming in. If you send it to this PDSC email address, the process for whoever can approve it quicker. So if your PDSC form is verified as incorrect during the inspection, we are going to be doing a return visit, and there's going to be a fee required with that, which is going to be $100 fee that's required. So prior to your inspections, I recommend getting on to our website and pulling your most current PDSC form to make sure that nothing on there has changed from the previous inspections. So all expired drain covers or equalizer line covers need to be replaced before the 2025 season. If you have a drain cover that expires on May 15th and you're trying to get your permit for May 1st, we will require you to replace those drain covers prior to us issuing the permit. If you have drain covers that expire in November, they do not need to be replaced until the expiration date, okay? So just keep that in mind when you're looking at that list. I believe I highlighted on the list, red is going to be ones that are already expired, and orange is going to be ones that will be expiring for this upcoming season at some point in 2025. So where to find your PDSC form? So when new forms are filled out, make sure, again, all portions of your form are submitted, are completely filled out. Do not fill out the information on there if it's just a pump change and you don't provide any of the main drain information or the equalizer information. All sections need to be filled out. Make sure you're keeping a copy for yourself also. But all of the completed forms are going to be available on our website, okay, just like they've done previously. And if you have multiple different pumping systems, filtration system, say you have features or jets or something along those lines, all of those approved PDSC forms will be in one file listed as PHPM PDSC form on our website. So when you go to our website, which is the link that we had earlier posted on there, what you're going to do is you're going to click on that Find Documents icon, that red button, and it's going to bring up a search engine. And you can search for your pool by your permit ID, which is going to be that 6-digit, starts with a 5 number. That is going to be listed on your permit. Typically, seasonals start with a 50 and annuals will be 53s or 55s. So permit ID is probably going to be the easiest way for you to search. You can search by address and name of your facility, but less is more when you're searching. And there are asterisks that are required to be put in when you're searching by facility name or address. And I think I will show that on a couple slides forward from here. So, infield plan review requirements. This has been something that we've been doing probably for at least the last, 7-8 years. So actually probably longer than that. If your pump has been replaced at your pool, you're required to notify environmental health of the replacement of a pump. And the reason goes back to during original construction, when your pool was originally permitted, we ran all of our numbers were based on your swimming pool pump. So when you go to change your swimming pool pump, that now has to be factored in with sizing of everything else that's in your equipment room. So the pump is what determines design flow of what's going through your system. So if your pump's been replaced with a different pump, you can reach out to us ahead of time and say, we have this application. Before you purchase the pump and fill out the infield plan review application, say, this is what we're thinking about doing. Does this work with our system? And so we can run the numbers ahead of time. So that way you're not purchasing a pump that's not going to work for your system. But we do need a new PDSC form to be submitted also with that new pump, infield plan review application. And a licensed electrician is going to need to pull an electrical permit with code enforcement also prior to us filing out the change in the pump. What we use the infield plan review equipment change form for is primarily pump changes. Sometimes we get them for filter changes. If you're renovating a pump room and you're moving some piping around, like the plumbing of the piping in the pump room, a relocation of equipment, just changing any equipment from what was originally on the original plan approval. It needs to be approved by this department. We also have an infield general form that's going to be for repair or renovation work that's not in your pump room. So if you're replacing perimeter fencing, doors and gates, renovating a pool deck, renovation of the swimming pool restrooms, that would need to be submitted on the form. With the perimeter fencing, if your fence contractor is doing the work, we would like to see some kind of product spec sheet that shows the type of fence that you guys are going to be installing, hardware, that kind of stuff, so that what you purchase we know meets our regulations. And then we'll come out after it's been installed to verify that it's been done per what our rule requires. Renovation of pool deck, same thing. Typically what we're seeing now is the use of pavers and replacement of concrete. And there are some specific requirements for sloping and just impervious surface. So we want to make sure that you're meeting those requirements. And then for your restrooms, shatterproof mirrors, floor drains, hose bibs. So there's certain things that we're looking for on the infield plan review general form that we'll be verifying in the field with a site visit after the work's been complete. So where do you find this format? So again, this is going to be on our website under public pool construction. It'll be listed as infield plan review equipment, and I think infield plan review general forms. And just click on that and you can download it and fill it out. We do, for some of these pools, have original construction information. So if you're looking for that and you can't figure out some of the information on there, it doesn't hurt to reach out to us and say, hey, do you guys have anything in the file on this when it comes to gallon size or square footage or any of that kind of stuff? Because sometimes we do have some of the original file stuff. So it may save you a little bit of time to just, turn around and give us a quick call. So just a few things I want to mention about code enforcement. We do kind of work hand in hand with code enforcement, building and electrical permits for the most part when it comes to equipment replacements and renovation jobs. One thing I just want to highlight here is that code enforcement does require that a building permit be pulled by your fence contractor for installation of new fencing. We will check to see that a building permit has been pulled and it's been finalized prior to our final sign off on the new fence or barrier. So make sure whomever that you get to do a fence replacement is a contractor that recognizes that they need to get permits pulled, because it's going to hold you up from opening if a new fence is installed and there haven't been any permits pulled for the project. One other thing to note, you may be required to get an electrical permit too, depending on what type of system you're installing. So if it's just a barrier, it's most likely it's going to be a building permit. But if it's a key fob system or something electronic like that, there may be electrical permits that are required to be pulled also. Failure to pull those proper permits is going to result in a delay in operations, because we can't open a swimming pool that doesn't have permits final through code enforcement. Infield plan review fees, there is a $250 fee that may be required to be paid depending upon the scope of the work and whether or not we have to make a site visit to verify. Some of these pump changes, a lot of these pump changes we try to do with our inspectors that are going out to do your inspection for an operating permit inspection. So if you're a seasonal swimming pool and you've had to change that pump out, and it's something that we're going to be verifying on the initial inspection prior to giving you your operating permit, we most likely won't charge a fee with that. If it's a complicated system or something along those lines, sometimes there's a fee involved. It just depends on the scope. An infield plan review application must be submitted for approval before the work occurs. That's in a situation that we all hope for, but it doesn't necessarily come across that way. So a lot of times we're chasing some of this stuff down after the fact. But if you know that you're going to be doing any type of renovation or repair work at your pool, always good to try to reach out to Chris or myself ahead of time, just to even give us a, hey, this is what we're doing. What do you think? What's the process? And do you think we need to submit anything for it? Because, well, like I said, what we don't want to do is come out to do an inspection out there and then find it after the fact, and then it holds everybody up on issuing and operating permits and opening for this upcoming season. And then last, like I said before, electrical permits, if you're changing a pool pump or a motor, so either or, an electrical permit is going to be required by code enforcement. And we're also going to be verifying that an electrical permit has been pulled and it's been finalized before we're going to issue your operating permit for this upcoming season. All right. Now we're going to switch gears to the operating season here coming up 2025, which I can't believe we're already there. It seems like we were just going through the holidays not too long ago, but permit inspections, nothing's really changed with this. All your seasonal and annual pools are going to be required to have a permit inspection prior to their operation permit. We're still doing state and local permits, which are going to be two separate things. The state permit is a paper permit. The local permit is a sticker. The local permit will need to be posted at your pool at the end of your inspection. So once you pass inspection, you'll need to have that local permit posted at the pool. The state permit you'll just need to keep on file. We post these on our website too. So if you need access to those for any reason, I know some of our CPOs have to do it for accreditation and stuff. Your old permits are going to be available on our website also. As you get ready for this upcoming season, and you're starting to think about getting the pool ready and scheduling those inspections, just make sure that you're using our permit checklist. They are available on our website, both in English and in Spanish. We have one for swimming pools, wading pools, spas, and water recreation attractions. So it's a guide, and we actually give these to our inspectors too. Anything on this list that you're not in compliance with is going to hold you up from getting an operating permit. So there's some items on here that are not listed, like restroom stuff, soap, paper towels, that kind of thing. But anything on here is going to be considered either a 4-point or a 6-point critical violation, and we won't be able to issue an operating permit if it's incorrect. So for this upcoming 2025 permitting process, just a change from last year to this year. We mentioned this in last year's meeting, but annual permits are now valid from June 1st through May 31st of the following year. So it used to be May 1st through April 30th. And so we've extended the operating dates a month, basically just to give our inspectors a little additional time to get inspections done. Nothing that y'all need to do as annuals for this effective date, but just keep that in mind. When you're paying for your permit, if you decide that you want to go to from seasonal to annual, you'll need to make sure that you pay, there's a prorated amount if you're going to want to open prior to June 1st. So just keep that in mind when you submit your application if you're going from seasonal to an annual permit status. And then seasonal permits are going to be valid from April 1st through October 31st. That hasn't changed from last year. 2025 permit process. All your seasonal and annual pools, like I said, are going to be required permit inspection before opening. The first day to do a seasonal pool this year is going to be Tuesday, April 1st. You can reach out to your inspector prior to that April 1st date to get something on their schedule. But the first inspection that they're actually going to be able to do an operating permit inspection is going to be on that Tuesday, April 1st. For your annual swimming pools, this hasn't changed from last year. So your pool is going to have to be on good standing status. So we call it A status, which is active status, prior to that June 1st date in order to be able to get an operating permit automatically issued to you. So if you have immediate suspension items or intent to suspend items that are outlined and it comes up to June 1st, we won't be able to issue an operating permit on June 1st unless those items are corrected. Okay. Permit inspections, we will have a list on our website again of the seasonal and annual pool assignment inspectors. That's going to be posted probably mid-March for you all to reference. And it'll be under that permit renewal information listed as a pool assignment list, pool inspector assignment list. If you're an annual pool and it gets to be come May 1st and you haven't seen your inspector. I would recommend reaching out to them to try and get something on their schedule, because what we don't want is, them doing your inspection right before June 1st, and there's stuff that you have to correct. And then you're scrambling at the last minute to try to get stuff done before that June 1st operating date. So their contact information will be on that list also, that you can reference. Just give them a quick call and say, hey, we haven't seen you. Could we maybe get something on a schedule to get our inspection scheduled to come May 1st? Okay. Permit inspections, again, same as last year, pre-permit inspections for all of our seasonals. To reiterate, all the items on that permit checklist should be correct. And if they're not, if you've scheduled an appointment with your inspector and we have to come back for any reason, whether it's pool chemistry or the phone's not working or any of those items on that checklist, there will be a $100 return visit fee that will be charged. We require that fee be paid before the inspector can schedule a return visit with you. And again, just like I said before, just make sure you're utilizing those checklists to help you through the inspection process. This slide here is just an example of what you would see for our state operating permit. Most of y'all are probably familiar with this. This is what's given to the seasonal pools. Hard copy of this is given after the inspector has issued the operating permit. It'll show on there any permit restrictions. It gives the effective date of when that permit becomes effective and whether or not you're approved for night swimming or not. This is our permit sticker. This was last year's permit sticker. Y'all are probably familiar with these. For as long as we've been doing them, some people have a stack of them on one of their signs that is pretty thick. So just post this over top of the last year's permit once you pass your operating permit inspection. For seasonal pools, this is going to be provided to you at your inspection once you pass. They'll give you the sticker. You guys post it before they leave. For our annual pools, depending upon when you get your inspection, if we'll be either giving them to you on site or we'll be email or mailing them to you. I think typically a month prior is when we do a mass email out with all of the operating permits with the stickers. And then from that May 1st to June 1st date, most likely the inspectors will be handing it to you while we're on site. If you don't get a copy of your state permit, make sure you're reaching out to us to make sure there's not some reason why we're holding your permit up. Or it could be just that it got lost in the mail and we can swing one by with the assigned pool inspector for you. 2025 application and fee submittal. So if y'all are aware, we're in the permitting process right now. So all the permits are due by February 28th. To access your permit applications, you need to get on our website, same search engine. You're looking for your PDSC forms. And like I talked about before, less is more with our search engine. So you can search by permit ID. If you're using the facility name or address, make sure you're using an asterisk at the front and the back side of whatever it is that you type in. So in this case, if it's a Comfort Suites, asterisk, Comfort, asterisk, and it'll bring up everything we have for every single Comfort Suites in Mecklenburg County. So it's just, like I said, finicky when it comes to what you put in there. So I would start with the first word or whatever your facility name is, or your address, same thing. So once you get the application, make sure the fields are pre-populated with what we have from last year's season. So if I'm sure a lot of apartments go through change of management, ownership, CPOs, that kind of thing, just make sure that you are reviewing the document, making changes to the document before you're submitting it. If you're doing it through like a PDF editor of some sort and we can't see it handwritten in, you can just highlight on there what's changed so that we know what to go into the system to update. What we pull the information from these applications, and that's how what we use to be able to communicate with our operators, whether that's email or phone number. So it's just important to make sure that you have the most current email, mailing address, all that on the applications. And then you'll submit the application with our fee by Friday, February 28th before 5 o'clock. That's the deadline before the late fees. So permit fees are going to stay the same. Seasonal is $130. Annual is $250. Again, like I said before, if you're changing from a seasonal to an annual and you want a pre-June 1st opening, you're gonna have to pay a prorated amount. Just make sure you let the front office staff know that you're wanting that pre-June 1 operating date. And then late fees, those have not changed either. $120 for every pool. So if you have multiple pools at your facility and you're late with those applications, it's not just one fee, it's $120 fee on top of the regular application fee also. And then return visit fee, like we talked about before, that's $100 return visit fee for failed inspections or for PDSC form information not being correct. This next here is just the invoice. We don't require this to be submitted with the application. This is more for your use if you need to get a check cut or a bill, the fee paid. You can send this up to your corporate office to have them cut a check. If you need a W-9, you can reach out to Sabrina Davis and she can get you a W-9 for submittal for that application fee. Like I said, invoices do not need to be submitted. They're just something for you guys to utilize to help you get the fees paid. So how to pay, submit applications to MEC pools at mecnc.gov. And then once you submit the application, you can call to make payment by credit card, or you can actually write in the email to have them call you, provide a contact number, and somebody from our front office staff will reach out. When it gets to be a little bit closer to February 28th, things get a little bit busy up front. So their phone is ringing off the hook up there, so if it goes to voicemail, that's why. But if you put something in the email that says to give you a call, they'll be able to reach out when they get a spare minute. You can also mail the check to our office or bring it by our office with your application. And I think they take cash or check at our office. One note to make with the credit cards, we don't take American Express. It's going to be MasterCard, Visa, Discover. So if you're calling to make payment, just make sure that you have the right type of card. And then if you're submitting your application separate from the check, just make sure that you're putting on the check the permit number that the check goes to, which application. We'll get checks in the mail sometimes from facilities where there's nothing on there to distinguish who that check is for. So we want to make sure that the check gets applied to the correct application. For credit card payments, just make sure you're writing down at the bottom of the application, paying by credit card. All right, just a few more slides here, and then we'll open up for questions. Just to touch on night swimming approvals, your pool is only approved for night swimming if our department has approved it. So you don't automatically get approved for night swimming unless you're an indoor swimming pool. So if you had an approval in the past and you're wanting to continue the approval for future permits, make sure before the inspector gets out there that all the lights are operational, because we have to approve based off of lights being able to be viewed during the inspection. If it's been within 3 years of the initial first approval, we can do an approval based off of a previous year's approval. It really depends on the inspector as to whether or not they want to do that, though. So if you decide to move forward with a night swimming approval for this upcoming season, just make sure you're notifying the inspector, and then we leave it up to them as to whether or not they want to schedule a site visit or base it off of the last year's approval. But all those lights that were operable in the previous approval need to be operable during your inspection. And then we will notate on the inspection or the permit whether or not you've been approved for night swimming or not. Just another friendly reminder, and I do this every year. I put this on the meeting. The last slide is, we see it every year, and that's why I put it in the slide every year. So when it comes to chlorinating your swimming pool, just make sure that y'all are chlorinating through the chlorinators, whether it's an automated feeder or a stick feeder, unless you're shocking the pool when the pool is closed to the public. We see every year chlorine pucks thrown into skimmer baskets, chlorine pucks thrown into pump baskets in the bottom of the swimming pool, or even granular that they've used to, an operator's thrown into the pool before we got there because the chlorinator wasn't working. If we see any of those, we have to deny a permit or suspend the permit. We need to verify that the chlorinator is operational. And the only way for us to do that is to make sure that it's actually, you're chlorinating through your chlorinator. It's also a direct hazard to the public to keep that pool open if you have chlorine pucks in it or you just dosed it with granular. And what we don't want is a child to jump in your pool, open their eyes, and you've just put granular in there and it burns their eyes, or they take a skimmer lid up and they find a puck and then they start messing around with that. So again, just make sure chlorination system is working properly before you set up that inspection with our inspectors. And then just the last thing here is just going to be the pool inspection video. So if you're new to Mecklenburg, or even if you're not new to Mecklenburg, we have a video on our website that walks through a full inspection process from what we look for as an inspector throughout the entire inspection. Goes from the pool area to the pump room to the restrooms. Maybe worth your while to take a peek at it if you've never seen it. I think it may be about 20 minutes long or something along those lines. So dates to remember: February 28th is going to be the last day to submit permit fees without paying a late penalty. Mid-March is when our inspector assignment list goes online. And then you got April 1st is the start of the 2025 seasonal pool permit or seasonal pool season, where pre-permit inspections may start. And then June 1st is going to be the start of the annual swimming pool season. And this is our contact information. So I'll leave this screen up. So you guys, if you want to screenshot this or, record our information or anything. And with that, I will open it up to questions, Tim or Hope, if we had any into the chat. Looks like we got a hand raised. Larry.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
I was just I got on a little late. I've been trying to get on, but I was just got a question about the night swim. What is there a time frame on that? Just so I can verify, so I can talk to my leadership staff about what.
Yeah. So we typically say dawn to dusk, and that's because especially during the summers, during the middle of the summer, it's light out till 8:30, 9 o'clock. So you really need to see if you're a seasonal or an annual, and then let it go from it because of that range and the time change and stuff, then determine whether or not you want to do a night swimming approval based on how often you guys are going to keep the pool open. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. And just one last question. Do the list that you spoke of on the Mecklenburg website for what the inspectors are looking for, can we access that list, or is it best to just, because I came in right when you.
Yeah, it's going to be available mid-March. So we haven't done the territory assignments yet for our seasonal pools. So for your annual pools, that hasn't changed from your previous inspector. So hopefully you probably have their contact information just through correspondence with them previously. We didn't really change territories for annuals. The seasonals will probably be a new inspector from last year, though.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Tim, do we got anything in the chat?
Nothing too out of the ordinary. Somebody asked how often the SVRS systems have to be checked and logged in. I just said, follow whatever the manufacturer's instructions say. If you still don't have the instructions, you'll be able to find them online or something like that. And we'll just be verifying in your daily records when you handle that. So
most of them are a monthly, from what we've been able to see. So that's probably, but most of them are monthly as of right now, what we've seen. Oh, and I will say this with application submittals, unfortunately this year we're not able to do that online. We're I think next year sliding into that, hopefully, coming up to current day times to be able to do online payments, but it is going to be credit card payments moving forward for this upcoming season. And yes, they're due February 28th by the end of business. So if you could get them to us before that, that would be great.
Yeah, so as far as, taking payments, we don't have the online payments for credit cards. So it either has to be over the phone with a credit card or in person with a credit card or cash, or a check. Check by mail, and no problem. Hopefully we'll get into this century sometime soon. Larry, you got something else, or you still?
Oh, no, sir. I think you
Okay.
answered it.
Gotcha. All right, anybody else? Well, thank everybody for attending. We are always here to answer questions. We would rather answer a question in advance than after it's too late and everybody's running around with their heads cut off. So please reach out to us at the Mech Pools email, and we are always here to help, and we appreciate everybody and hope we have a good, smooth season. All
I
right.
appreciate it, y'all. Thank you for coming.
Thank
I might have
you.
one more. William, did you have a question?
I did.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, I just wanted to ask one question, and this was about the pool covers. I think ours is in August, so would that be getting that changed now?
You could probably wait. Our inspectors will circle back with you on something that's that late in the season. We don't want to hold you up and cause you to replace it prior. If it's in August, I think we're good with that without being replaced till then.
Okay, and then the second one was, I just recently think how we just had our pump changed. I would have to need the paperwork on that as well.
Yep. And if you have questions, feel free to give me a call and I can kind of walk through exactly from you.
Okay, you was going in and out a little bit right there.
Yeah, just feel free to give me a call. I think my speaker on my computer is starting.
Okay.
All
I definitely will do that.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That
All
it.
right. I don't see anybody else.
All right, y'all have a good afternoon.
Great.
Stay dry.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
Have a good
thank y'all.
day.